Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining to the Paula Kantor seminar. We'll wait 1 or 2 more minutes, give people time to connect, and then we will start. Just bear with us for 1 or 2 more minutes. Thank you so much. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. For me, it's the first time that it's a morning session. I've relocated recently to Mexico, so now I feel that these sessions are early in the day for some people. It used to be 2 in the afternoon. Now we have to get up early and look nice at 7 a.m., presentable in front of the camera. I hope I tried my best. So thank you, everybody, for joining us to today's Paula Kantor seminar series. I'm very happy that we have with us Silvanus Odio, our colleague from SAS, Agricultural Technology Innovation Lead, based in Mexico as well, working with SAS Latam. And he will be presenting us his work on the assessment of women's empowerment in southern Mexico. And I guess this is based probably on a lot of work and probably also a lot of time, longer time. I guess it's not one short study. So we're looking very much forward to your presentation, Silvanus. Also, I think we didn't really tackle Latin America so far in our series. We're mostly focused on Africa and Asia. So that's also nice to have a new perspective. And with us today, I would like to acknowledge also the presence and thank you very much to Hazel Malapit, who is a senior research coordinator at IFPRI's Poverty, Gender and Inclusion Unit. And we're very happy to have you, Hazel. Thank you so much. I was already saying we are continuing the tradition that we have IFPRI colleagues with us during these seminars, providing their feedback, their comments, their suggestions, which are always very helpful and much appreciated. So with this, I don't want to talk too much. I would hand it over to you, Silvanus. The floor is yours. You have about 30 minutes for your presentation, and later we will hear intervention from Hazel, and afterwards there will be the opportunity for all of you in the audience for questions and answers. Thank you so much. So the floor is all yours, Silvanus. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Michael, and welcome to Batam. Thank you also to Hazel. I'm very happy that you're here because actually you're also part of this work because you and your team, you helped us lead this assessment here in Mexico. And yeah, I'm very happy for this opportunity to share with you the result of our work that we started in 2023, and we have also activities in 2023 and 2024. And also, I want to highlight that I'm not the only one who contributed to this work. Of course, no, there are a lot of there are a lot of people behind me. I don't want to cite a lot of names, but maybe I just want to mention Jessica, Odette, Alejandro, and the Herbs team. And of course, many other enumerator and people. Angela Metzen, who retired but was also our colleagues at that time. I will say that if it is a boys band, I will call this boy band the Latam Brothers. Okay, so we implemented this study following I mean, different project that we have here in Latin America and an agreement that we have with the Walmart Foundation. But also last year with an agreement with the Mexican government, we were able also to implement a quantitative assessment of women empowerment in southern Mexico, with a focus on southern Mexico because it's like the part of Mexico that need to be much more attended. And it is in the interest of the federal government, but also state government to push to improve productivity, resilience, and strengthen farmers' food security in that area. So the idea is to have a better understanding of the women empowerment and status because we don't have a lot of data, and this will help us in the future to build to tailor more our intervention in that area. But I would like to start. I mean, I started this presentation. I did that presentation first for the team in Mexico. So we wanted first to highlight what we mean for empowerment, and of course, something it's a very difficult, a very complex concept. Of course, when you have empowerment, you have the word empower, which is I check in the dictionary, and it is a relatively new concept coming from the last centuries, and its mean give power to, and is generally associated with concept like authorize, delegate, or enable. And fundamentally, it applies a dynamic transfer of power over a period of time. So I would say that it's a transformative process through which women and girls gain greater control and influence over decisions in their own lives. And in other, not only in their household, but also in the marketplace and in the communities. And here we have the UN Women, who define empowerment as a process that helps women recognize and challenge gender-based inequality, build self-confidence, expand their choices, and also access resources while transforming social and institutional barrier to equality. So this is like, as I was saying, very complex. And if we talk about the International Labour Organization, they also have a similar definition and highlight the importance of women, of the importance for women to set their own agenda, train themselves, solve problems, or gaining sufficient confidence to manage their own needs. So, women empowerment is about enabling women to break free from, like, say, limitation that they can have and gain confidence and voice over the resources, the control of the resources and decision, but also actively participating as equal individuals in all spheres of life. So I wanted to add a third definition because in the framework of this study, we use the definition of Kabir, which highlight the three important dimensions for women empowerment, uh, like resources. When we're talking about resources, we're talking about current and future access to resources. And it is resources in a broad sense, which include not only physical, but also social capital. So agency is that specific case refer to the person's ability to make their own decision and act accordingly. It is the power to decide, to act, and to influence the life I mean, your own life. And a simple definition of empowerment that I like is like empowerment is to increase the person agency. And of course, there is also a third dimension, which is achievement, meaning what you have, the outcome that you got from all the choice that you have made. So these are international consensus, and during the study, we were able also to explore farmers' definition of empowerment through gender differentiated focus group. I will explain a little bit later the qualitative assessment that we did. So, but in the peninsula, the Yucatan, women empowerment is, I mean, we did a study in different states in the peninsula, the Yucatan, Oaxaca, and Chiapas. And so during this focus group, we asked for farmers' perspective on women empowerment. And it is a concept that is understood as women having the freedom to move independently, to make decisions about the activities, particularly La Milpa. So in the peninsula, the Yucatan, they practice a polyculture system called Milpa. And it is, I mean, you have in the same plot, you have maize, beans, and pumpkin. And so I will give more detail, how can I say, with the presentation. So this definition is not accepted by everyone. So women express concern that too much freedom could also lead to social judgment or even personal risk. So if we want to highlight the most important thing that farmers, the perception that farmers had in the Peninsula of Yucatan is about economic autonomy. It's very important for empowerment, but also cultural norm, the respect of cultural norm and gender role, which continue to shape how empowerment is experienced and defined. So in Oaxaca is the other state that we did the work. So women empowerment is associated with also having the freedom to move independently within and beyond the communities, make personal decisions, and contribute also economically without relying on husband or family or, men in general. So, and empowered women are seen as those who work in the field and manage household expenses and also own land in the name, which gives them greater financial autonomy, of course. Again, there are discrepancies because some view this empowerment as more attainable for single women, given the traditional obligation expected from married women. And the first is in Chiapas, women empowerment is defined as self-worth and dependence in decision making and the ability also to move freely without being controlled by men. So if you pay attention, mobility is something very important in the Free State. And specifically in Chiapas, empowered women also are respected for expressing themselves in front of the community, managing household and family tasks and participating in family decision, but also maintaining safety because Chiapas is an area a bit dangerous these last years. So insecurity in the region is very important. So they talk about maintaining safety and also talking about negotiating responsibility within the family and contributing to knowledge, to contribute to agricultural work, showing growing equality in traditional male-dominated role. So these are, let's say, the perception of people that we survey through qualitative protocol. But how can you measure this complex concept? And I'm very happy that we have here Hazel, because for these purposes, we adopted the PRO-AI, which is the Project Level Women Empowerment in Agriculture Index. It's an index that was developed by IFPRI, and it's quite complex. And we have been trained by the team of Hazel and Agnes and the whole gender team. And they developed a very comprehensive training program, and which I strongly recommend you to take. For personally, it completely changed my mind and on how we should lead our research activities. So it's a very useful index because it allowed to measure women empowerment within the context of the project and with the objective of identifying area of disempowerment and adjust strategy to address the identified gaps. It's also very useful to monitor the impact of project. And we actually came across PRO-AI because in our interaction with the Walmart Foundation, it was also about, they really mentioned the needs to measure the outcome of a project and implement the PRO-AI here in Mexico. So PRO-AI is composed of 10 indicators with two optional, with 3 levels of agency. First one is the interesting agency or power within, meaning inner ability and confidence to make choices, sense of control, self-belief, motivation. Something that you feel within, no? And we have different indicators like autonomy in income, which is a measure of the internal and external motivation that influence a person's decision regarding the use of income. Self-efficacy, person confidence, the ability to believe that if I have something, I face something, I will be able to solve it. Attitude about intimate partner violence against women, something that I don't need to actually explain more. And also an optional indicator, which is about respect among household members. The second level of agency is the instrumental agency, and it's also an empowered tool. And the ability of someone to translate the choice that they have or they make into action, influence the course of your life and the outcome or that you get, not only in the household but also within the community. And in that place, we also have different indicators like the input in productive decision, ownership of land and other assets, access to and decision on financial services, control over the use of income. I mean, meaning if the farmers or the respondent feel that she or he has input into how the household spend the money that they generate. Work balance, which is very important. We'll talk about it later. And it's all about how many hours a person works in a day, but also visiting important location. And it's very important that we have this indicator here because mobility was one of the parameter highly mentioned by the farmers. And also the third level is the collective agency and I mean the power with. And of course, this goes beyond the individual and it captures women capacity of organizing these firms and act together to share to pursue shared interest, but also at the same time change things in the community. And here we only have two indicators, including group membership and membership in an influential group, which is optional. So Pro-AI normally is it's adapted to the level of the project, and there are details here that I would like to mention. We didn't do the assessment in the context of the project, but we do it in the hubs in southern Mexico. So maybe you are not, I'm not sure you're aware of that, but since the early 2010, CIMMYT has been pioneering the whole model in Mexico through the Masagro initiative, but also Crop for Mexico, which is an agreement between CIMMYT and the federal Mexican government. And it is a model organized around innovation ecosystem to promote sustainable agricultural practices adapted to each region, but also taking into account socioeconomic conditions, but not only I mean, like a multi-stakeholder platform. I don't want to use the platform because we also call platform where we're doing research. And each hub serves as a localized innovation platform, as I was saying, and to integrate research, demonstration, and extension activities. So generally in the hubs, you have a connection between researcher, farmer, extension agent, government, academia, machine provider, NGOs, input provider, I mean, many stakeholders. So here in Mexico, we have 10 established hubs, but in the southern part of the Mexico, you have these three hubs. I mean, we have Hub Pacifico Sur in Oaxaca, the hubs Chiapas in Chiapas, and the hub Peninsula, the Yucatan. And each hub operate through, let's say, mini project that start from like the deployment of technologies, conservation agriculture strategy, post-harvest innovation, and so on. So we perform the Pro-AI at the hub level because each hub, let's say, it's seen as a project because they have their own objective, priorities, and strategy. And this assessment will serve actually like a status, the current status of women empowerment, and will be served actually to design the strategy of each hub. So we perform a qualitative and a quantitative assessment, as I was saying. So how do we, for the qualitative assessment, it is very important and very interesting because it gives us insight into women empowerment in region where we don't have so much data. So when you look up into the literature, you have different kind of data, but we don't have a clear, let's say, idea of what is happening. And this is why these qualitative assessments are very interesting. We did it at the end of 2023. We use various methodologies like the community profile to have a better understanding of the gender context, seasonal. We also measure gender-based seasonality pattern to have an idea of how responsibilities are distributed by gender and how seasonal variation affect time use. We also did gender differentiated focus group, as I was saying, and during which we asked for the farmers' understanding of the concept of women empowerment. And we did it in different community. And we also perform a semi-structured interview for life history to understand perception and experience of women empowerment through an individual experience. So I mean, focus group to have a general view, but life history to have individual experience. And when we were talking about implementing this, my colleagues and Angela Metzen, she is a social scientist, mentioned that we will need much more than just a simple semi-structured interview for life theory. So it's a very light version. Still, we got a lot of information, and I spent hour reading the transcript of this 24 life history. Quite very interesting reading, but also a bit unpleasant because when you see the challenge that women and men are facing in the rural area here in Mexico. Okay, so we also carry out a quantitative assessment in Oaxaca, Chiapas, and the Peninsula, the Yucatan. And for the quantitative assessment, we apply an individual questionnaire. No, so when you have in a household, there is quite a debate on what is a household, so I won't go into the detail here. But when you go into a household, when you have two adults, so we interview both one adult man and one adult woman. And when we only have one adult decision maker, we continue the survey with only women. So we don't do a survey with a household where you only have a man. No. The detail here is that men are surveyed by male enumerator and female enumerator survey women, of course, separate so that they how can I say, they're not influencing each other. So the IFPRI team helped us to train all the enumerators. It was quite something long, but actually very easy. I mean, when you understand, it's not so difficult actually to implement. So we collected the data in last year through a CAPI, and then we computed through Stata. So fortunately, the IFPRI team already generated all the code for you to compute the index. And how are the indicator calculated? So each indicator has a threshold, and the principle is to assess if a person meets the adequacy threshold. I'll give two examples. So for the time model, which is related to work-life balance, the computation check if the individual work fewer than 10.5 hours per day, which like show an acceptable balance and thus adequacy in this actor. For the mobility indicator, I mean, we check if a farmer visit at least two types of location, like a city, market, or relatives, at least once per week, or at least one essential location, such as health facility or public meeting, at least one per month again. So if a farmer meet these conditions, that we consider that he or she is adequate in mobility. And a person is considered empowered if they achieve adequacy in at least 80% of the indicator, meaning 8 of 10 indicators. So let me share with you the result that we have. Okay. So with the qualitative assessment, we characterized the different communities. I mean, 2 communities per state, because qualitative assessment is quite expensive. So we were not able to carry out in all of the communities, but we tried to choose two communities per state that are representative. And these are rural communities dedicated to agriculture. And of course, they face significant challenge due to climate change, soil fertility degradation, and lack of water. And water was a topic highly mentioned by women. And I noticed this reading the life history, as they're afraid that they will not get sufficient water in the future. And if you remember the definition of empowerment, when we were talking about resources, it's not only about current access to resources, but it's current and future access to resources. So this was a point that we wanted to dig in more, and we were clearly the model about it in our survey last year. But we did a qualitative survey end of 2023 and a quantitative survey in fall 2024. And it was a topic with a lot of, last year was a bit atypical because we have a lot of rain. So water scarcity was not well mentioned. So so we didn't have, we were expecting more actually from our assessment. Anyway, so apart from agricultural activities, our assessment have shown that we have, that agriculture is dominated by men, with women having a supportive role, even though, and they engage in many activities like planting, harvesting, and post-harvest. But despite the significant contribution, frequently their role are undervalued or not fully recognized by the people in the community. We also observe that we have frequent migration of men in search of better opportunities, leaving women to take on leadership role in agricultural activities. And this shift has led women to increase, this has increased women decision-making power within the household and community, and with them challenging, let's say, traditional gender norms, particularly in La Peninsula. So I don't know if you know very well Mexico and La Peninsula. So it's a highly touristic area. So you have places like Cancun, Tulum, and Chichen Itza. And so men generally migrate to the cities to have better access, to employment, letting women in charge of the milpa. So it's something very important that we have to keep in mind to see how the result the result of our assessment. And this is why qualitative assessment is very important, because it actually also help us interpret the data that we have. So and another thing that I would like to mention is also group membership. And we have different kind of groups. So sometimes you have political group, you have religious group, or you have group formed by government agency to have access to subsidies. But many farmers, however, are very reluctant or ready to participate in this group and prefer to work alone. So it's something very important that you have to keep in mind. So for the decision making in productive activities, these are results from the qualitative assessment. So we have, of course, it varies across the communities, but generally important decisions, especially those involving investment, are made jointly by the couple. In order, you have men that dominate because, and they justify their claim that women lack technical knowledge for this decision. So it's also important to highlight that there are differences in perception between men and women. While men often report joint decision making, some women indicate that men mostly take decision, even though in a few cases they also recognize shared responsibility. So regarding reproductive activities, you have, it's more alignment. There is more alignment because in most communities, women are the one, they are recognized as the main decision maker for food and childcare and health, etc. Even though in some cases, it's also mentioned that couples decide together, and occasionally men also try to maintain control. In terms of household income, it's mainly generated by men, but women also contributed a lot through wage labor, food sale, handicraft, or government program. And this is valid for all of the communities that we did the assessment. So they also recognize a joint decision making and women managing the money for the household expense. So joint decision making on how to use the income, but women are mainly the one managing the money for the household expense. Of course, we also have differences because women, they say that it's the joint decision making, but also there are cases where men demand control back, while in some communities, women keep part of their income also aside for emergency. Okay, so for the quantitative assessment, we did quite a huge survey with more than 1,200 household surveys. So I'll go through the result, the general result, and then in each state we have a very interesting result that we'd like to comment quickly. So for example, the 3DA, it's considered the number of women who are disempowered and the intensity of the disempowerment, and or the number of indicators in which those women are not adequately empowered. And the results show that when you look at the 3DA, you have, men are more empowered than women, which is not men are more adequate, I would say, it's much better to say, in the different indicator than women. And if you see the percentage of women not achieving empowerment, here is like 50% of women, while we have 44% of men, which is quite high if I compare to other result elsewhere. So when we look up also percentage of women another indicator like the gender parity index, which show the extent and intensity of gender parity in the couple. I mean, a parameter that evaluates how women empowerment compared to men within the same household. We can see that it's again very high, but these general parameters are very important because when we will do an assessment, like say in 3, 4, 5 years later on, we can see how this parameter is moving. So the pro AI or overall score is also high, like around 0.8. But when we check the result per state, we can see that Oaxaca and Chiapas are more or less familiar. You can see here you have more or less the same level of 3DA percentage of not achieving empowerment. But in the peninsula of Yucatan, you have much more women empowered, and this is noticeable not only for the 3D index, but also for the gender parity index. No, which is much more higher, and the percentage without gender pay, which is lesser in the peninsula, and also the pro AI score. Even though the mean empowerment gap is more or less the same, but still it looks like women are much more empowered in the peninsula than when we compare with Oaxaca and Chiapas. Okay, so here the ancestor headcount ratio highlight the percentage of respondents who are inadequate in each indicator regardless of their overall empowerment status. So don't want to go into too much detail, but this indicator is very interesting because it provides a clear picture of where farmers are facing significant challenge. And we can see here that you have work-life balance. It's one of the first factor. You have more, 60% of women and 40% of men not adequate, self-efficacy, access to credit, autonomy in income, and control over the use of income, and also group membership. I mean, it's very interesting to look up this data per state. The results are very interesting. So we have indicator well, that are very low. For example, when you have input, for example, input in productive decision, and put it in decision. And on input in productive decision and ownership of land, which is surprising if we see that half of the women surveyed doesn't have access to credit, but they have the perception that they still own ownership, so they have land ownership. So land tenure is something that we didn't survey a lot in our study. We have a different diversity of legal form, including ejidos and communal properties with different degree of collective management. So although women have legal right to land under Mexican agrarian reform, in practice, they often struggle to translate this right into actual control and ownership and limited ability to leverage land as collateral for credit. So this may explain why women think they have access to land, but it is difficult for them to have access to credit. But it is something that we need more research on. Something also very interesting in Oaxaca is that women don't have access to credit, but many perceive that they have control over the use of income, while it is the opposite for men. Men have access to credit, but they feel that they don't have control over the income. If you think, you remember the result of the FGDs, we show that women manage the money, even though if it is a joint decision-taking process. So work-life balance everywhere, it's a challenge, even in La Peninsula, where we have much more women empowerment. You also see self-efficacy. We have a high percentage of people not achieving self-efficacy. And of course, group membership in the particular case of Oaxaca. I think I could comment on it, but let us move with the conclusion. So overall, the implementation of this survey was very interesting for us because we have robust data that show us the local context right now, and this will help us to tailor our future intervention. So we have strong component where women empowerment is very high, like as I was saying, input in productive decision, with women involved in decision related to agricultural activities. And then this all give us opportunity to actually have much more impact. Other important components include also mobility and violence against women, even though they're still detail associative. In terms of opportunities, if we have the opportunity to do the study again, I think we'll have to do more in-depth qualitative analysis, because sometimes we have a lot of result, but how interpretation of this results are very challenging, and the qualitative analysis help a lot for that. But of course, it's something that costs a lot of money, and yeah, we have it will have to do that to deepen our understanding and enhance our empowerment strategy. There are things that we could investigate more, like group membership, self-efficacy, work-life balance, but also the component related to income. So that's my final slide. So this assessment helps us to have comprehensive data that we will use in the future, depending also on funding that we get from the Mexican government. We are willing to continue our collaboration with IFPRI. And of course, the design of our activity, taking into account the rich benefit, empower, and transform framework. That's a framework that changed life. I mean, when I understand rich benefit, empower, and transform, that's very clear. And currently, we are assessing different, we are leading different research around mechanization, if mechanization can help to improve work-life balance, if social norm relative to access to input, but also social context around access to credit. So I will stop here. Thank you very much. It was quite a long presentation, so I'm looking forward to your question. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Silvanus. I pass it over to you, Hazel, please.
Yes, thank you so much. Silvanus, that was a fantastic presentation. I think, first of all, I want to say this was very exciting to see this work come to fruition. Congratulations. I think your work shows really the value of the mixed methods work. I know it sometimes, especially for colleagues for whom this is a new topic, it's not always easy to show why it makes sense to collect both qual and quant. You know, even collecting some gender indicators sometimes already feels like a stretch, but to do it with more than one methodology, first of all, congratulations on doing that. But also, I think your findings are really quite rich. I very much appreciated the regional differences, both on the qual and the quant. And I think, you know, it came through very clearly, this distinction between the peninsula and the rest of the regions. Local conceptions of empowerment, often people skip this, right? We've been working on the region for a long time. We know this context, but sometimes if we've never asked this question, we actually making assumptions. So I think this is a very good formative kind of step. And what was nice was that I think it kind of validated the themes that were being collected in the quant. So you can kind of, you know, a lot of them talked about mobility, about, you know, the financial autonomy, livelihoods, and all of these were also captured in the quant. So that was very reassuring that these were some of the themes that were important to the local people are also the ones that you're collecting about, measuring in the quantitative instrument. I think on the ProWea, you gave us a very good overview of what the empowerment, you know, definitions that the instrument is rooted in, and the Kabir framework, resources, agency, achievement. I think just to clarify that, you know, ProWea is really focused on the agency aspect, right? So it's really capturing that middle piece, you know, the strategic decision-making component on how you use the resources that you have to get the outcomes you want, right? To do what you want with your life, with your livelihood, whatever it is. And that was kind of the missing component in terms of the things that were being measured. And that's what ProWea focuses on. And so it doesn't really have a lot of, it doesn't ask about how much land. It asks about whether you own the land and you know, your decisions over this, but it doesn't tell you, well, how big was your land, which could certainly make a difference, right? If it's a tiny plot versus a big plot makes a huge difference. Whereas in the agency component, you will be captured the same, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that it's actually to unlock the full potential of what you can do with the ProWea. The other outcomes you measure is very important. And That part is hard to standardize because, of course, every program, every project has different outcomes you care about, right? Maybe you care about, maybe if you're interested in the land part, that needs to be very well articulated. If you're looking at entrepreneurship and agribusiness, you need a lot of other outcomes on that front, etc. And so that's hard to, we cannot kind of give a blanket recommendation on what of these other outcomes you should be measuring, but having those outcomes allows you to look at the intersections between, okay, how does then empowerment, especially the agency component, interact with, say, how secure your land tenure is, or how big your farm, or how that sort of outcomes. Same thing with nutrition or any other outcome that we care about, yield, right? So having other outcomes, it would be the next step, and that will really help you do more analysis on how they intersect. I think the next step, I mean, the reflections you had were very thoughtful. Maybe my suggestions are more around what other things you can do, right? So now that you've identified some of the diagnostics, right? So you assess, okay, here are the key, constraints by region. The next step will be to unpack it. So, the indicator is sort of one summary, right? It just tells you adequate, inadequate. But what's driving that? Sometimes when you look at just the overall index, it's hiding, maybe things are moving in opposite directions, very possible. So kind of unpacking that more, because you do have all this raw data, so you can dig in, the specific topics that are coming out as important, like workload, like these connections on the assets and the credit that you're identifying. The migration I found really interesting. I think if you have another chance to do another study, this is something I would, double click on, like try to unpack a bit more, because I think this is a trend that's we're going to see more and more, not just maybe for Mexico, but even for the other countries where CIMMYT is working. And it reminded me of some past, the qualitative synthesis work from the ProWea work from GAP2, found that workload, group membership, and mobility are very much interlinked, that the constraints you have at home, like in terms of time that women have, prevents them from attending meetings, for example, or attending trainings. And then that has sort of these other cascading effects. So I was curious about how those, whether you can find some of that intersecting. Of course, the idea is that if you have both qual and quant, the next step would be to kind of connect a little bit more. If you find, for example, around workload, I mean, I don't know how you have these life histories, right? I don't know to what extent you can find, some insights there that might explain some of these things that are driving your results. So I think I'll stop there. I have, I can talk for like another 30 minutes about what you can do next. But I think, these are super interesting results. I'm very happy to see it at this stage, and excited to hear what you have planned next. So
thank you very much, Hazel. I hope I own my certificate, because I took all the
you should have them if you already took all of them, but you do need to take the exam. So if you didn't take the exam, you don't get the certificate. But anyway, thank you for the recommendation.
Thank you very much. I think there are many things that we can say, but maybe let's open the floor for the question. And yeah, Michael, I don't know how we would like to proceed, but thank you very much for your insights. It's really, I mean, this actually opened us a lot of activities, things that we can do, and we actually share the data with our colleagues here, and some of our colleagues are interested to explore that aspect and so it's very interesting, and it's opened the eyes of many people here, and it was very difficult to push to achieve that. But when we have that now, it's about continue deepen our understanding of the topic.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hazel, for your intervention. Thanks, Silvanus. Yeah, we can open the floor now for any questions. Excuse me. Please, anyone, if you have a comment, suggestion, question, doubt about some of the content of the presentation, feel free to raise your hand, or you can also put it in the chat if your connection is not so stable. Maybe I have, while colleagues are thinking, of course, I've read about the ProWare, but I have never applied it. Maybe can you open your presentation again and show?
Sure.
Maybe this would also be like helpful for some of the colleagues as well to help understand the findings, the numbers, right? So
yes,
because at the first glance, I think they make sense. Everything makes sense, but just like to understand the different shares and proportions that you presented, just to make sure that everyone understands what it. I think it's the very first table of results you're presenting on the different, the whole sample and
this one.
Yeah, this one, exactly. So
Okay.
here, the first line, you have like about, let's say 0.79 and 0.83 for men and women. So it says that's the average, that's the proportion of people who achieve 80 or more % across all the 10 indicators.
Exactly.
Is that right?
I mean, there are two things. No, it's the number of indicators in which women are not adequately empowered. I would say, yeah.
So in which they're not empowered.
Yes.
Okay. I'm taking the test already for you, Silvanus.
Yeah. I mean, it is in the opposite way, I think. I mean, 0.7. I mean, the lower your 3D E index, the bad the situation, I will say.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy to step in if you want.
Please.
Yes. So the index, it's a score. So it's not a proportion of people necessarily, because what it captures is two things. It captures prevalence and depth, right? And the maybe confusing thing is that the overall indices are defined in the positive. So higher is better. So the overall ProWea, for example, 0.8, 0.79, right? That higher is better. So if that's high, it means that's when it's higher for men, same with the 3DE index. Higher for men means they're more empowered. Now the components, subcomponents, so like the H and the A, these are in the negative. So like not achieving. So these are the proportion of people. So this is a proportion, a percentage of people not achieving empowerment. And then among those who are not achieving empowerment, what is their mean disempowerment score? And the reason for this sort of flipping back between reporting it in the positive and reporting it in the negative is an artifact of the methodology, the Alcar-Foster approach, which is rooted on poverty metrics. So, like in poverty, right, we're looking at who are the poor. So here, because the poor are who you want to want to intervene with the poor, you like figure out what their constraints are so that you can design the program to address the poor's constraints. So the analog is to ProWea is the disempowered. So we're looking at the disempowered, how many people are disempowered, and among the disempowered, what is the extent of their disempowerment. And so that's the reason there is a focus on the disempowerment when we're looking at the diagnostics. But in the overall, when we put them together for communication purposes, it's better, or it lands better with policymakers and non-technical people when the empowerment index is in the positive. So I hope that's helpful. Sorry, that was a very long explanation, but I hope that helps.
Very clear. Thank you. So I have another question then. Please, colleagues, if you don't be shy, ask any question you like. There are no wrong or right questions. This is an opportunity also if you have some doubts or anything. If you ever wanted to ask, we have also Hazel here, who is one of the brains behind this whole assessment methodology, I think, which is very helpful, very rich. So Silvanus, if I understood you right, will this serve as like a baseline as well? Will you go back after some time and see whether things have changed?
Yes, yes. The plan with the Mexican government was to have like what are the current status, and then adjust the hub strategy, and then after that, see at the end of because here we have sexennial, we have 6 years of government. So after 6 years of government, how we were able to impact the different indicators that we identify as weak. So that was the plan, but now things change a little bit, and we sent a proposal to the Mexican government, but we didn't have right until now we didn't have a no or a yes, so we're still like in the limbo. Normally, we will still already, the plan was to actually present the result. We did a feedback for the farmers, but we wanted to sit down with all the stakeholders to design the strategies around that result in each hub, and we were not able to perform that. That was planned for the beginning of 2025, but we were not able to perform that. So the idea is to come back some year later to see how we improve or we did bad. It could also go in the wrong direction. So regarding women empowerment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Very clear. There's a
you.
comment whether we can share the PDF file
Yeah, sure.
of the presentation. Yeah, I think that's probably possible. We can share.
Yeah.
I think these meetings are also always recorded. Yes. Please, who's there?
Thanks for the great presentation. I had one question. So for the mobility indicator, I noted that I saw that for Oaxaca, the difference between men and women was much smaller, while for the other regions, there was much difference. And I was just wondering why that is the case, and what is it that affects men and women either to feel not as empowered on mobility and
That's
not across
interesting.
regions.
That's interesting. I didn't even look into it clearly, because you can see that I mean, Oaxaca, you have farmers, you have no, I mean, Oaxaca, you have women that more percentage of women that are not adequate in that percentage. But I noticed that for men, you see in the peninsula where women are really much more empowered, that men are more inadequate in the mobility than women, and also in Chiapas. Interesting. Really, to be honest, I don't know why this result was like this. That was not something that that really popped my attention. But I can say that maybe it is related to the security issue around, because mobility was mentioned a lot by women. And when we thought that actually that there will be more inadequacy in that parameters, but we discovered that this was not the case in all the free states. And I think what pop up from that study, particularly if you take into account the qualitative data, is the fact that they just don't want to be limited by the security challenge that they're facing. And then they say that if you're still having all these security problem, and we are able to move to do our activities, to go to the market, to go to visit, to go to the hospitals, then this means that we are empowered. But I don't know why men are more inadequate in that parameters than women. That's something very interesting that we should look up into it. So that was a very sharp observation, Maxwell.
Thanks. It means I was paying attention. The presentation was nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maxwell. There's a question in the chat from Steve. Excellent presentation, Silvanus. Yes. How do you think the hub will use these findings? Do you see uptake, and how?
So, very good question. Thanks. So we share the result. Actually, it was very important for us to do the presentation in Spanish. So this is a barrier. So we did the presentation in Spanish with the hub staff and the hub collaborator, and we shared the results. So this, of course, raised a lot of questions. So the idea was to sit down with the hub collaborators, the network, and then to adjust the hub strategy, because each hub had its own strategy. So and priorities. So adjust the strategy so that we can actually attend the weakness that we identify. So the idea was to do a different kind of workshop with the government, with other actors, with the farmers also, because in the herb strategy, farmers are very central, but we were not able, unfortunately, to implement that. So it's still on the radar. We hope that we'll get the funding to do that, but we will start by that and then derive clear strategy, and then through that, we are able to measure the outcome. I mean, for example, if I take the work-life balance, maybe we will implement very specific activities and then we will see the impact through another measurement. Something that we want also to push a lot was self-efficacy. I didn't go deeper in that, and also through group membership, because the group that we have here, how can I say? And this is something that I'm not very. How we measure the indicator, I think we are not able to actually capture that. But because when you say you participate, if you participate in a self-help group, is not the same thing in participating in a religious group, even though people help themselves a lot through religious groups. So it is something that we really want to work on. But group membership here is seen badly because it's about first to get subsidized, and then people get frustrated because they don't receive, or they perceive that they're not receiving a lot of subsidies. So when you talk about associativity or group membership, it's something that generates a lot of conflict. So it's something that we really want to work with the herbs, particularly in Oaxaca, in the future.
Great. Thank you so much, Silvanus. I don't know if I think we could take one more question if there is. That's not the case. Thanks again, Silvanus. I think this is a very comprehensive data set that you have. I also agree it's very nice that how you approached this, you and the team, going more in depth, talking really to the people, the life stories, focus groups, and also using this more quantitative framework. Congratulations. I think there's a lot of potential follow-up work that could be done. I will visit you in your office later today.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Hazel, for being with us. Thanks for your comments and for your explanations. It's very nice to have you here, especially on this particular topic that you are the expert. Thanks everybody for joining us. Our next seminar will be at the end of September. So looking forward to see you all, and have a good day, have a good evening, good afternoon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.